It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Always honored to fill in for Eric and Gary here on Red Eye Radio. Man, I got to tell you, by the way, follow me on X if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. You can also follow me on Facebook at Dan Mandis Show as well. Earlier this evening, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but earlier this evening, there were more drones over New Jersey. This is incredible footage. And this is where I'm going to start the show today. This is incredible footage. Go to my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. I reposted some of the footage, and I swear these drones, I find this so incredibly fascinating because on the one hand, and I know that you've been hearing about these drones all day long and last couple of days, but this has been going on for a while. And so you've got John Kirby, right, with the Biden administration. He sounds so incredibly snarky and snide when he said earlier today that, oh, these drones are not from Iran. Okay, but where are they from? That's number one. And I feel like, and I'm just going to tell you where I'm at right off the beginning on this. I don't know what these are, but I'll tell you what, it certainly is suspicious. And I feel like it's either maybe Iran or China, or it's some really smart, nerdy guys that are playing Hold My Beer. You know what I mean? But the fact that the federal government, with all of the resources that it has, doesn't know what these things are is just a little disconcerting, don't you think? Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked about this earlier today.
Well, number one, I'm going to call it total bullshit that no one knows what these are. And I think it's a slap in the face to the American people to say they don't know what this is.
Yeah, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says, yeah, this is total BS when the federal government at first was saying that they don't know what these drones are. I mean, if you think about the technology that we have, I mean, we can slice and dice a terrorist on a rooftop from hundreds of miles away. But we can't figure this out, really? So what do you think is more plausible? That the Pentagon is lying or that they really don't know what these things are? And I guess the question is, what's worse? That they're lying or that they don't know?
If they're telling the truth, then this country is in horrible shape. We're all in danger. I mean, seriously, if our great government can't identify what these drones are, they're flying every single night, that people are sitting out there videoing with their cell phones, then no American is safe. I have no respect if our government cannot say what these are.
Realize, and just in New Jersey, you have drones that are flying over its largest aquifer west of New York City, near military research facilities and over Donald Trump's golf course in Bedminster. So, yeah, these things are all over the place. And again, it's not just in New Jersey. There's a story. Somebody sent me a story out of Oregon. And basically in Oregon, this was from the 12th. So yesterday, Thursday. And they have strange flying objects over Oregon as well. And this has been going on for quite some time. U.S. Representative Chris Smith said a Coast Guard commanding officer told him a dozen drones closely followed a Coast Guard lifeboat. They're off the shores of New Jersey. And I'm sure that everybody's got their own theories as to what these things are. The governor for the fine state of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, said the aircrafts do not pose a threat, but has not provided any details to support this. And again, and I've got some audio from Phil Murphy, but part of what this is just how, again, incredibly snide that they sound. Some of these drones, you know this, they're the size of an SUV. Now, this is much larger than those typically flown by drone hobbyists. And as far as Marjorie Taylor Greene goes, they appear to avoid detection, she says, by traditional methods such as helicopter and radio. And so it's really interesting because they are avoiding detection, but people can film them with their cell phones. They are much, much larger. Again, the size of an SUV. Somebody was saying earlier today, they're the size of a school bus. So rewinding just a tad, of course, you remember Congressman Jeff Van Drew appearing on Fox News. This was actually on Wednesday when he appeared with Harris Faulkner.
From very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
Well, people are literally mocking Van Drew, Congressman Van Drew. And it is true. About a month ago or so, there was a number of stories where it showed that Iran did have these ships that were essentially serving as launchers of drones. And it showed that they were testing them and so forth. And I don't pretend to know if this is, if Van Drew is talking about the ships that were launched a month ago or so that are now here. I have no idea. What I do know is that people are sort of making fun of a Congressman Van Drew, and they really shouldn't be. I would more certainly mock the people in our government who are just sort of blowing this off as nothing serious. Because this has been going on for a while. Drones have been flying over our military installation or some sort of crafts for quite some time. I mean, this has been in the news for, at least a couple of years, right? And people that are in the know don't know what these crafts have been doing over our military installations or nuclear installations, and they can't tell if they're drones. They can't tell if there's some sort of unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs and so forth. Remember, of course, as everyone does, the Chinese balloon that flew over America gathering data. We all know that. We've all been making the comparisons. We let that go on way too long. And now here we are with nobody really knowing where these drones have come from.
Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down.
And I think there's most people agree that the drones should be shot down. And again, that is Congressman Van Drew out of New Jersey. So that sparks a big war of words, right? That was on Wednesday. And here comes Congressman Jeff Van Drew crashing into Fox News, crashing into Harris Faulkner's show, and saying these drones are from Iran. And so that sparks a big conversation. The governor of New Jersey comes out then and he says, no. These aren't from Iran.
The Department of Defense said there's zero evidence to that effect. FBI said zero evidence. I'm not sure what he's been watching lately, but he might want to watch the news. Israel has decapitated Iran, and we have through economic sanctions. I don't think they've got boats off the coast of Iran right now. So let's not fearmonger this. Let's try to honestly put our heads down with a sense of urgency, based it on facts, and try to figure this out together.
Well, here's the problem, is that nobody's doing that. Nobody is calmly putting their heads together and figuring out what in the world is going on. And I'm not fear-mongering myself. I'm just curious as to why nobody knows what these things are. And so many people are laughing at Congressman Van Drew for making the claims that he made. But let me ask this question. What is more laughable? Congressman Van Drew saying that these drones are from an Iranian mothership, or the fact that our own military, our own government, and all of the resources that we put into it, they can't tell us what they are, and they refuse to do anything about them.
When you say we don't see any evidence of a threat to public safety, what is that based on? Because if you can't say what this is and who it's coming from, how can you know?
I don't have a crisp answer for you on that one. That's the $64,000 question, but I'm relying overwhelmingly on the experts in the federal government.
Well, okay, what have the experts in the federal government then said, Governor Murphy of New Jersey? You know, during this whole interview, I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know what station this was, but it's like an ask the governor kind of thing in New Jersey. But during this whole interview, the governor of I kid you, you can't make this up. The governor of New Jersey said several times that he was working with the feds and even named Alejandro Mayorkas as being on the job. And Alejandro Mayorkas, he is watching these things closely. And I keep thinking, really? The same guy that said the border is secure for years when it wasn't is now telling us this is nothing? He also says that the feds could shoot down these drones, but this is the governor for New Jersey. He says that this is a federal issue, and if anybody's going to be shooting down drones, it's got to be the federal government. And by the way, the Pentagon, so John Kirby comes out, this was earlier today, and he says these are not drones from Iran. They don't have a mothership off the eastern seaboard. Again, this is John Kirby, and this is earlier today. This is on Thursday. And this is part of what he had to say.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat or have a foreign nexus. We have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
So Kirby says no evidence of foreign involvement with these drones, no evidence that these were actually illegal or operating in restricted airspace, and by and large, these are all manned aircraft. So I'm kind of head scratching because I've seen the videos, man. I've seen the videos. They look like drones. They're not acting at all like planes. I'm just telling you that they're not. Now, maybe when he says manned aircraft, he means that these are actual drones that, you know, are whatever, over the counter or rather sophisticated, but we know about them. I don't really know. But what I do know is that the smirk on John Kirby's face as he is taking these questions from the media is just, it is so infuriating. Because the American people, we're not buying what they're selling, at least by and large. And also just a reminder that John Kirby is the same guy that said, indeed, the border was not open, that the border was closed. John Kirby is the same guy that covered up Joe Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof and has been defending the horrific Afghanistan withdrawal for years, among other things. So I'm sorry, John Kirby, if I just don't say, oh, okay, case closed. Jackie Heinrich from Fox News asked what I thought was a great question.
On the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing? Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far, in an investigation that is ongoing, has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity.
Seems crazy, right? So you don't know what it is, but you know that it's not from a foreign entity, and you know that it's not dangerous, and you know that they're not getting information. If you look at the video, again, clearly they're drones, not little airplanes, and they're big, not airplane big, but large drone size. like an SUV. So that Congressman, Jeff Van Drew out of New Jersey, he's tired of being made fun of. He was saying earlier today, you know what? I'm not the one that's stupid.
They've been incredibly stupid and incredibly weak with this. Here's the point. We know they're not backyard drones that some hobbyist is using because they're much more sophisticated than that. We know that they're not a commercial company within the United States because we don't even have this level of sophistication yet. We are a full decade behind where China is with drones. The government claims it's not them. They say it's not them. So who is it? Well, I had credible individuals who have high security ratings, and they came to me. And again, these are dependable, credible individuals that have security clearance that felt that they wanted to clear the air. They were in essence whistleblowers and said, look, they believe there's a real possibility it could be Iran, that there could be a ship out, not right on the coast of New Jersey, not right there, but these drones, as cited by the Coast Guard, are coming in and out of the ocean. We're not being told the truth. They are dealing with the American public like we're stupid.
All right. I mean, listen. I'm on side Jeff Van Drew on this one. I think that he's on to something here because we've seen these kinds of things time and time and time again, where the government will tell us, you don't see anything. When the reality is, when things come out into the open, it turns out the air quote conspiracy theorists were actually right all along. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric. 866-90-RED-EYE. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It pays to have a tire maintenance routine, especially during the winter driving season. Between black ice and heavy snowfall, winter weather can impact your tires and your productivity in a number of ways. Here's a tire maintenance tip to help you avoid downtime and roll safely through winter. Check your tire pressure during every pre-trip inspection and make sure they're properly inflated according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Cold weather naturally causes tire pressure to decrease, and underinflated tires can wear faster and impact your fuel efficiency. Maintaining proper tire pressure is essential to maximizing the performance, safety, and lifespan of truck tires.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Eight 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric, talking about these drones. If you haven't seen the latest footage, earlier this evening, I don't know if it's still going on in New Jersey, but earlier tonight, it was pretty big news where you had, again, more of these drones. And, some are saying that the footage from tonight is the best drone footage we've seen so far. Go check it out. You can follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show. By the way, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find us on all the various socials. We also broadcast via the internet, YouTube, Facebook. That's a video of the radio show if you want to check that out as well. I'm also on the socials on Facebook at Dan Mandis Show. Coming up, we've got all kinds of stories, including I don't know if I've seen a president-elect have a better day than Donald Trump just did. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Also, a great story with Tom Homan, of course, incoming border czar. Tom Homan meeting with Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. Great audio. Straight ahead, it's Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. By the way, word of warning that I have been home sick for 3 days, and so this is my first show back. It has been a very rough 3 days. So I am home in my basement studio now. So if you hear me struggling, just know that it's only momentary, and I'll get control of my infinite cough that I now have. I'm working through it. I think I'm going to be able to get through the show, and my morning show. We'll have to see what happens and what 9 hours of straight broadcasting will do to my voice. I'm sure, though, that I'm going to be fine. Real quickly, I want to play one more piece of audio, then I'm going to get your calls. 866-90-NATION, I should say 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. This is Jeff Van Drew, the congressman, and he was talking about how people at the Pentagon and people within the Biden administration, they're simply not paying attention to the seriousness of these drones that are flying over America. This is something that he said on Fox News.
No answers, no focus, no ideas. Of course people are concerned. So at the very least, what I've done is passed forward a very credible possibility that came from credible experts. These are real people that didn't want to reveal their names because they didn't want to lose their position, who have high security clearance. It's the real deal. I deal with these people. I'm on the aviation subcommittee. I'm the vice chairman of transportation. Yep. This is real. I'm not saying it's definite, but it's something that needs to be explored and treated with respect.
All right. So, as I said during the opening segment, I don't know what these things are. I'm certainly no drone expert, but whenever the government is just sort of snidely blowing off something that looks very serious and not really giving a lot of answers, saying, well, we don't know what it is, but it's not dangerous. That doesn't really check out, does it? This is Larry calling from Roberts, Illinois on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Larry.
Hi, Dan. I'm sorry to hear about your cold there or whatever. You're from Tennessee, and you're not that far from Florida, so you probably knew about the gentleman the other day that shot down a drone down there in Florida with a 9mm.
Yeah, I took his 9mm out and shot at it. Cops came, and he, he realized that he had done something wrong, and he could be fined up to $10,000. He ultimately ended up spending, a day in jail?
Yeah, I think maybe he ought to just see if he's got some relations up in Jersey that he could go visit for a day or two. And, hey, I'll tell you how we took care of that down where I'm in my neck of woods. And I'm sure that the congressman who was just testifying, he could probably say, I'll spring the $10,000 for you, buddy, and we might get to the bottom of it. All we need is somebody who's not afraid to drop one of them.
Well, and the problem is, so just so folks know, you are not allowed per federal law. You can't shoot down a drone. You can't. That is under the purview of the feds. But one of the things that the Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I played the audio earlier, is why can't we simply shoot one of them down? Now, to the point of the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy. One of the things that he said was, okay, so some of these drones, because you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of reports, and one of the things that he said is that one of them was a small airplane, and another one was there were other reports, multiple reports of the same drone. And all I'm saying, and earlier tonight we had, again, more sightings. You can see them on my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. There's a lot of these. And it's not only in New Jersey. I mean, this is happening all over our country. I was telling folks earlier about a story out of Oregon where they see some, UAPs flying around in Oregon. They don't really know what those are. So and I appreciate the call. There's something going on, and I don't know what it is. Clearly, the government, either they don't know what it is or they know what it is, and they're lying to the American people. Cameron is in Kentucky on Red Eye Radio. Cameron, thanks for calling in.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
What I was thinking is that you know how Kirby said, they're not flying over any unrestricted airspace. Isn't Picatinny manufactured in New Jersey, isn't that a government or military, military installation? There shouldn't be nothing flying over them or the air bases near them.
Right.
And plus, the whole thing with the Iran thing was that didn't they put out contracts on Trump and government officials? Because they showed some of these drones being used in Ukraine to go after Russian military soldiers. So why not use one of those drones to try and go after government officials? But again, it just seems funny, because how can you tell us we don't know what they are, but you're not to be worried?
Well, and the other thing, Cameron, and you're right, and the other thing is, this government has done nothing but lie to us for years and years. So I'm always, and I know that I'm not alone on this, typically whenever the government tells me something, I'm assuming it is the exact opposite, and I do my own research and I try to figure out, okay, so what is the government trying to hide? Because they have a history of not telling us the truth. And let's be honest, the Biden administration has been nothing but an abject failure in telling the truth and in policy.
Yes, that's what makes me think there's something else going on. He's been so nice with Trump and everybody, and it's, nice transition and things. And we already know they done tried to kill the man twice.
Well, and here's the thing, Cameron. Well, here's what I'll say is that, and I can't go there with you that they, as in Biden, tried to kill Trump twice. Somebody tried to kill Trump twice. I think there's probably more to those stories. But here's what I will say is that when it comes to Biden, and Cameron hit on a very important point. The most important point that Cameron hit on right there was when he said that the Biden administration is trying to play nice in the transition. Bull crap. Do you know what the Biden administration is doing? The Biden administration, so that Trump can't get a wall built, the Biden administration is very quietly but very quickly trying to sell the remnants of Trump's wall that he was trying to build the first term. Remember, there was a lot of the wall materials were left. And so that stuff is apparently still laying around. And in the news today, Biden's trying to sell it. And the reason why Biden is trying to sell it is so Trump can't build it. So for Biden to sit here and say, oh, yeah, we're going to play nice and, oh, it's going to be a smooth transition. This guy is such an unbelievable liar. And the Democrats, unbelievable liars. So while they're smiling to your face, they're stabbing you in the back. That's what Joe Biden's doing. Because he darn right well knows that illegal immigration is one of the core reasons why he lost the presidential race, why the Democrats lost the presidential race. He was literally underwater when it came to all the polling. And one of the big reasons, there are so many reasons, but one of the big reasons was because of illegal immigration. And he's still trying to play games. So no, I don't believe the Democrats are playing nice, not by a long shot. Dave is in Michigan on Red Eye Radio. Dave, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Hey, Dan, am I coming through?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Hey, first of all, congrats to you, the job you do, and thank God for Eric and Gary. I've been relying on them for major news interpretation here like you can't believe. I just want to make one point here because we learned from our lessons, and the swamp doesn't want us to learn from our past history lessons. This whole thing is starting to smell like Pearl Harbor to me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you've ever, and I have, if you've ever read what drone warfare is capable of, yeah, there's any number of things that could happen with drone warfare. And by the way, guess what? Jeff Andrew knows this. Iran is well equipped in drone warfare, as is China.
Oh, and we've been giving them billions of dollars, our tax dollars.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing with Biden. Biden has allowed all those lifted sanctions so that Iran can sell oil to China. And that has allowed Iran billions of dollars so that they can continue to fund terrorism around the world, including, of course, what happened in Israel. So you are, Dave, in Michigan, you're absolutely right on all of those things. And so that's why, and that's part of what's frustrating. That's part of what's frustrating. I actually have written down here in my notes, Dave, where I'm listening to John Kirby, and he has just this snide tone to his voice when he's listening to and then answering Jackie Heinrich, who's absolutely, from Fox News, by the way, Jackie Heinrich is absolutely calling BS on what Kirby is saying. This really says it all right here.
On the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing? Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far, in an investigation that is ongoing, has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity.
Yeah, I mean, again, not to belabor the point, but he and the governor of New Jersey both sound just incredibly snide and condescending, because they're clearly either not wanting to give information, or they're lying, or they're just, maybe they know that they're nothing. I don't know if they're nothing or not. You don't either. I mean, nobody seems to know. But if the government is just telling us, oh, it's nothing to worry about, that really is when I start to worry. Jimmy is in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee on Red Eye Radio. Jimmy, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, we've got there's a group of them, of the drones that come out about 9:30 at night, every night, and they hang out in about a 5-mile radius. Well, a group of us get together, and we was like, well, you know, it's an invasion of privacy. We thought it was law enforcement. So we took the green lasers, the laser lights.
Yeah.
We all got one of those and started, you know, just kind of trying to blind their vision a little bit. And I reckon it aggravated them, and there was about 20 or 30 of them showed up in this 10-mile radius there that we are, and just hovered there for a while. And every time we
20
would shoot one,
or 30, Jimmy, 20 or 30 drones? How big were they?
Yes, they was. I had a friend of mine's wife was looking at them through a telescope, and she said that they looked to be like maybe 3 or 4 foot.
Okay.
They wasn't great old big, but there was a bunch of them.
Yeah, those drones, and I appreciate the call, Jimmy. Those drones, they can do amazing things, and this is gonna sound silly, but I'm on a lot of medication, so bear with me. But I went to Dollywood, 2 years ago, and the way that they use those drones in coordinated maneuvering is just incredible. And so if you took that and you weaponize it, like, you know, countries are now doing, we can do it too. If you weaponize it, it is just the lethality of a bunch of drones that are weaponized is incredibly scary. And so for me, I'm not overly confident that our government is actually really on the job on this one. Now, maybe I'm wrong. And again, to be honest, I hope that I am. But for me and for people like Jimmy and folks that have seen these drones, the other thing is, okay, well then, you know, you got 20 or 30 drones that are 3 or 4 feet, like Jimmy was talking about there in Tennessee. Well, that's a lot of drones. And I just curious, it's like, okay, so what are you doing 9:30 at night? And I'm generally curious. What are people doing 9:30 at night flying, 20 or 30 drones? I mean, listen, to each his own. And if that's what you like to do, then knock yourself out at 9:30 at night. But I just, whatever floats your boat, man. But it's making a lot of people in this country really worried. And here's the other thing, then I got to run. But here's the other thing is that, and I said at the outset, this could be a bunch of really smart, nerdy people just having a hold my beer moment. Watch us freak out the world. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red has the phone number, 866-907-3339. Coming up, Donald Trump's amazing day.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here indeed. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There is a lot of news out there. Follow me on X if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. I think one of the biggest stories is the drones continues. The drone frenzy continues earlier this evening. More drones off the shores of New Jersey. So if you want to see that footage, it is incredible footage. I've got it on my X feed at Dan Mandis Show, and I've got some more calls on the drones and some other information on that coming up here on Red Eye Radio. I do want to get to a couple of other things real quick. I've got to tell you that for President-elect Donald Trump, I don't know if I've ever seen a president-elect have a better day. Because today he became the first president since Ronald Reagan to ring the opening bell there in New York at the Stock Exchange. And there is Donald Trump. He is surrounded by his family. You've got J.D. Vance there as well. And Trump just has... There's no other way to describe it. Trump absolutely has this crap-eaten grin on his face. And he was also, of course, as you no doubt know by now, he has been named as Time's Person of the Year. And so he gave a big interview. I'm just going to go through some of the things that the former president and president-elect has said during this interview. I think the most provocative is that he says that January 6th pardons could start in the first 9 minutes of his administration. So people are losing their ever-loving minds. Donald Trump, they say, reaffirmed his plans to pardon most of those convicted for their actions during the January 6th, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. He says it's going to start in the first hour, maybe the first 9 minutes, Trump said. He would look at individuals on a case-by-case basis, but that a vast majority of them should not be in jail. And so, this made news all over the place today because, that's a very controversial thing to say. Although, to be perfectly honest with you, friends, it's not a surprise. I mean, Donald Trump has been saying this for a long time, and very specifically, he has said that he would look at each case individually. Now, maybe they already have. When the president-elect says it could happen in the first 9 minutes, okay, so obviously how that works is he's got his attorneys, he's got his team, and they've got all the paperwork. And they perhaps know who they're going to pardon first. I really don't know. But Caitlin Collins over there on CNN, she was having an absolute conniption fit. If I can age myself about 1,000 years, but she got really seemed to be frustrated and befuddled at the fact that the president-elect could actually let all of those people out of prison in the first 9 minutes.
Just on the pardoning within 9 minutes, is that even possible? I mean, what does that process actually look like?
It is possible. I mean, what they can do is they can have his lawyers, the incoming White House lawyers, draft the pardons, the proclamation, essentially, and have it take effect when he takes the oath of office. So it can happen within minutes. I mean, we've had it happen before, you know, where Jimmy Carter, for instance, on his first full day of office, so the 21st, he pardoned the thousands of people who had evaded the draft. So during the Vietnam War. So there is precedent for doing something like that. And obviously, in this case, you know, the incoming president has made all kinds of different statements about who exactly would be qualified. He's mentioned, as you said, as broad as possible, but also said that maybe he'll start with some of the nonviolent offenders.
So there you go. And he has been very consistent with that. Other highlights, just very quickly. By the way, that was Evan Perez. The president-elect also says that he is open to holding detained migrants in camps. And I know that there's a lot of people that are saying this is incredibly controversial. Here's the deal. You've got to put them somewhere, right? I mean, you've got to put them somewhere to process them. Trump insisting he has the authority to use the military to assist with his promised mass deportations, even though, as his interviewers noted, the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits the use of military in domestic law enforcement. So we'll have to wait and see. We already know there's going to be legal challenges, but we also know that where there's a will, there's certainly a way with President Donald Trump. It doesn't stop the military, he says, if it's an invasion of our country, and I consider it an invasion of our country, he says. I'll only do what the law allows, but I will go up to the maximum level of what the law allows. And I think in many cases, the sheriffs and law enforcement is going to help me. Oh, that is absolutely true. In at least a lot of the more conservative states, you do have governors, you do have mayors that are willing to help the president do what he promised to do, which is deal with all of these illegal aliens. And let's all be honest, this is something that does need to happen. It's what the American people expect. And so all of these folks on the left, they can get, you know, really wrapped around the axle on how it happens or why he's even going to do it. But you know what? Slowly but surely, the left, I believe, is going to come around. Remember what Donald Trump has been saying. This is what he said on Meet the Press last weekend.
Is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. It's a very tough thing to do, but you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country. They can't come out of prisons. We don't want people that are in for murder.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a mystery to anyone. He has been very consistent. And so Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, actually met with Tom Homan, Donald Trump's incoming border czar. That happened today, Thursday, and that was a very big deal. Everybody seems to be so concerned about what is going to happen beyond the bad guys, beyond the violent criminals. And I'm here to tell you, Donald Trump has already given an indication that he needs to and wants to deport the bad guys first, but then eventually it'll be the others that have come in here illegally as well. And so Eric Adams, the Democrat mayor of New York, he met with Tom Homan, and of course the usual and very predictable hue and cry began. But here's the deal. Eric Adams understands what illegal immigration has done to the once great city of New York.
I heard from the incoming head of ICE is that we have the same desire to go after those who are committing violent acts, repeated violent acts among innocent New Yorkers and among migrants and asylum seekers. That's what I heard from him, and I was pleased to hear that because we share the same desire.
Right. Right now in New York, it really is one of the worst cities out there in terms of crime with illegals. The latest numbers, I'm sure you saw this. You've got 58,000 illegal aliens living in New York with criminal backgrounds. Put another way, 75% of arrests in Midtown Manhattan are illegal aliens. Police sources telling the New York Post that as many as 75% of people arrested in Midtown in recent months for crimes such as assault, robbery, domestic violence are immigrants, illegal aliens. In parts of Queens, that figure is estimated to be over 60%. They say the situation is exacerbated by sanctuary city laws that prevent New York police from collaborating with ICE on cases where they suspect individuals are in the country illegally. And I'm here to tell you, friends, it absolutely boggles the mind. It boggles the mind how so many people out there, so many mayors and so many governors and so many Democrats and so many media members and people on the left, generally speaking, they are pro-criminal, illegal, alien, and I don't understand why. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's why Donald Trump won the election. The other thing is, what about all those missing kids? Now, remember the New York Times and others have come out and reported that kids are being worked illegally in slave-like conditions, or we literally have no idea where they are. They came over the border and were sent to sponsors, and they literally disappeared.
We have 500,000 children who had sponsors in this country that we can't find. We can't find them. We don't know if they're doing child labor. We don't know if they're doing sex crimes. We don't know if they're being exploited. 500,000 children. There's a level of hypocrisy that everyone that states they want to protect everyone but innocent individuals who are victims of crimes and children. I want to support and protect children and innocent people that are victims of crime. And those who don't understand that, it's not up to me to try to convince them. I know what my job is, my goal is, and I was clear of that while running and when I became mayor. Safety means everything to me. 500,000 children, we don't know where they are right now in this country.
So remember where that comes from. That was an Inspector General report. I've seen numbers 300,000, 400,000, 350,000. Eric Adams came up with 500,000, whatever. It's a lot. Basically, the Inspector General from Homeland Security, they looked at the operation of Alejandro Mayorkas and the Biden administration. And they said, yeah, it's true. We have no idea where a lot of these kids are. But some say it's more of a paperwork issue. Really? So if I went to Homeland Security and I said, hey, this little kid from Guatemala that came in 2 years ago, he went by the name of, I don't know, whatever. Where is he now? They couldn't tell me. For all we know, he's turned into a MS-13 gang member, or he's, been recruited by ISIS, or he's working in a McDonald's. But the point is, nobody knows. And so when there's so much chaos going on created by Joe Biden, it is impossible to keep track of what's really happening, and that is what's happening. News Nation and others reported that kids are being used to smuggle drugs or being used as decoys. So the Border Patrol focuses on the kids and the drugs get through. I mean, these are the things that are going on. We've talked about this before, where kids are sent to sponsors here in America, but they turn out to be gangbangers. The sponsors are gangbangers. They're not relatives, or worse, they end up in some sort of trafficking situation. Now, remember, and this is a big deal, Eric Adams is a Democrat, and other Democrats out there, mayors and governors, have said they will actually use taxpayer dollars to Trump-proof their cities. I mean, Gavin Newsom, of course, to me is the prime example. Adams is bucking that trend, so he's actually getting a lot of hatred. I know that you're shocked by that.
To ensure that I keep New Yorkers safe. That's my only goal. I cannot make it any clearer, and so if pursuing that goal means that my years and years of advocating for immigrants that are here attempting to find the American dream, if that demonizes me, then I'm going to take it. But I'm going to save lives in this city.
I love this next soundbite that I'm going to play for you. Tom Homan was on Sean Hannity's show, and he needs your help in finding those kids.
Also, as President Trump is committed, we're going to deputize every U.S. citizen in this country to help us find 340,000 missing children, because we need the public's help on this. Every mom and dad knows what it's like. They have a gut feeling when they see something out there in the public that there's something ain't right with that child. So we're going to deputize every one of them to help us find these children.
Listen, it takes a village to fix illegal immigration in this country, and that sounds like what Tom Homan has said. Very quickly, Frank is in Texas on Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Hi, Frank. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Yeah, thank God for President Trump. But getting back to the drone issue,
yes,
if we can. A drone is a high-quality aerial camera. It's that's what it's designed to be, and it's also a registered. It's a registered flying machine with the FAA, just like a 152 or a Piper or a Boeing 737.
Yeah, you can't shoot it down.
You shoot one out of the sky, and it's almost the same thing as taking a shot at a 737. The other thing about it is, too, is the drone pilot is a licensed pilot, either Part 107, which is basically commercial, or hobbyist. If you mess with a pilot flying a drone on the ground and that drone crashes into somebody, you are legally responsible for causing that aircraft to crash.
Hey, Frank, let me ask you a question. Hey, Frank, let me ask you a question real quick. Do you have any drones?
Yeah, I originally got into a long time ago. I got into drones to fly the fence line on my property, looking for breaks.
So let me ask you. So let me ask you this: you've no doubt seen the footage off of New Jersey. Is there a way?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a way from that distance? There's no way to tell, because I don't know anything about drones. Clearly, is there a way to tell who owns that drone? Is there like a serial number or anything that is visible from the?
Yeah. Well, if it's a legal drone, legally flown by a legal drone pilot, it will have an FAA registration number on it, just like a tail number on a regular fixed wing aircraft or a helicopter.
And it's visible. And it's visible from the ground at night.
Not mine. I mean, mine are. I mean, I've got a Phantom 4, and it's it's like a 3-pound, 2.5-3-pound drone. It's not a.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it is, if that guy really wants to shoot one of those drones down, let him stand underneath that minibus and let it hit him.
Yeah, no, I mean, Frank, that is a great point indeed, because people were saying that we need to shoot him down. Thanks for the call, Frank, and the intel. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, and that is where JW is in Indiana. JW, thanks for calling from the Hoosier State. What's up?
Good morning, Dan. I admit I'm an old guy, but as I was listening to your show tonight, and, culmination with things that I've read and watched recently. Is it not frightening and disgusting and sad that we have reached a point in this country where, one, you really don't know who or what to trust anymore, that, two, almost anything, regardless of how outlandish, is just as apt to be true as it is to be false. Three, from our elected representatives to just general employees in government, you have the feeling that a lot of them could just about fall under the traitor category. And as I never would have believed that our country would reach the point that it has to what I just expressed is my honest opinion. And frankly, I'd include a lot of our citizenry.
Well, and here, I will comment, JW, on the other side. Thank you very much for calling.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
Phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7, WTN 6 to 10 Eastern. Listen in if you would like. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. If you're one of those folks who likes to see a radio show on video on YouTube, we also do that as well. So JT called from Indiana, and he was talking about how disappointed he was that you can't really tell the good citizens from the traitors. And I'm going to paraphrase everything that he said, because he said a lot of really good things. And so he said, I'm an old guy, and unfortunately these days we have so many people who are elected officials, and he was having a hard time telling the good guys from the bad guys, the great Americans from the traitors. And so when you put it in that kind of a context, I'm going to go for the easy one, the easy example. Illegal immigration, right? So earlier in the broadcast, we were talking about Joe Biden and how Biden is out there, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to sell all of the old remnants of Donald Trump's border wall. Because remember, there is a lot of these, a lot of the materials was left, and it's just been like laying around. And so Biden, of course, he wasn't going to use it. Now what Biden is trying to do is he's trying to sell it off for $5 a pound or whatever it is, really cheaply. And so you look at what Donald Trump was elected to do. Donald Trump was elected to fix illegal immigration. The American people voted on just that, because what we want is a secure border. And so when you look at the fact that you have Joe Biden doing whatever he can to stop Donald Trump from doing what he was elected to do, well, that's when you look and you say, well, Joe Biden, he is trying to thwart the will of the American people. And so does that not, in effect, make him a traitor? And I kind of understand that. I kind of understand why JT would think that. Because if the American people so clearly want a secure border, if the American people want bad guys deported, and one side of the aisle, the Democrats, by and large, a lot of them are trying to stop that from happening, then literally what they're doing is they're putting killer illegal aliens over law-abiding citizens. And you think about that and you think, how can they possibly justify doing that? And it's so disappointing. I would think it's very disappointing to the majority of the American people and the media. And the media doesn't call them out on it. And you sit here and you think, well, aren't they supposed to be like those they're supposed to be like the purveyors of truth, right? They're supposed to find the truth. Well, the media completely ignored the wide open border for years until they couldn't ignore it any longer. So you look at all of this, and I don't want to get into the legal term of a traitor, but just utilizing it, very loosely. And I don't want to see anybody hauled off and shot, but all I'm saying is that I can understand why you would look at a Joe Biden and how he's trying to thwart the will of the American people and say, well, yeah, that's what a traitor does. Get all these materials. You know that the American people have already paid for these materials, and now you're selling it for pennies on the dollar to thwart what Donald Trump wants to do, which is continuing to build the wall. That's traitorous. Gavin Newsom in California, knowing that the American people and far more people voted for Donald Trump in California than in the previous election, he saw a lot more people vote for him than previously. He didn't win California, obviously, because California is a wasteland. But we saw a lot more people vote Republican in California than in many years previous. And Gavin Newsom is out there doing whatever he can to thwart the will of the American people. Is that traitorous? I mean, here's the thing. He is acquiescing to the people who think like him, the Democrats. But to me, anytime, I don't care what political party you're in, anytime you put murderous illegal aliens over your own citizens, that's a traitorous act. It is horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying that you see so many governors out there and so many mayors out there saying, no, we're not going to help Donald Trump get rid of murderous illegal aliens, raping illegal aliens. It's insanity. And so I get why JT is so incredibly frustrated. Then you start talking about the last thing that he said, and I had to jump to the break. But the other thing that he said is that he's disappointed not only in politicians, and I'm going to tell you this, JT, expect nothing from politicians, and you'll never be disappointed. I've learned that over the years, but I get it. But then he starts talking about the citizenry across America. Well, I'm right there with you, JT. I mean, there are people that I know that when you sit there and you try to explain to them rational arguments about illegal immigration and why it is that we need to deport all of these bad guys, it's just like they don't want to hear it. And I don't know if they're so blinded by Donald Trump and their hatred for Donald Trump that they're no longer able to think rationally, or if they're just plain zombie stupid. I don't know. And the reason why I use, the deporting of the bad guys, the deporting of the raping and murdering illegal aliens as the example is because that is the easiest example to show how incredibly insane and inane these people are on the left that JT says are traitorous. And again, I totally get it. I totally get it. And it gets frustrating. And then, you have the people that will sit there and then they'll say that they're going to disconnect with us, with me, with like a Trump supporter, because I'm a Trump supporter. And so they have the audacity to then come around and say, oh, well, you're a Trump supporter, so you're a Nazi and you're a bad person. Really? Because I'm the one that's against the murderous, raping illegal aliens. I'm the one that's against that. And you're going to disconnect with me? Oh, please do. Please make my day. And I know that we've all gone through that. A lot of us have. Dan Patrick, by the way, is the lieutenant governor for the state of Texas. He was on Fox News talking about how Joe Biden is looking to sell the wall and the wall parts for pennies on the dollar. And he's not real happy, as you can imagine.
They're despicable what they're doing to the American people. And the American people obviously aren't going to tolerate it. That's why they were thrown out. But the idea, we've been trying to buy this wall from them for 4 years, and they wouldn't sell it to us. And you know what? I'm going to check in with our Department of Public Safety. Maybe we need to start pulling over these trucks to be sure they don't have too much weight on those trucks. Maybe these trucks need to be slowed down. We need to do everything we can in Texas to stop them. The taxpayers paid for this.
Yep.
And they want to stop President Trump in 38 or 39 days from rebuilding the wall. I want to, the legacy of Joe Biden. He lets off his son. He's letting off all these criminals. He's doing everything he can with these blue state governors and mayors to destroy this country. They are traitors to this country, leaving terrorists, leaving murderers, leaving rapists in this country. And now he wants to sabotage this president before he takes off. It is disgraceful and disgusting. He will go down as the worst, most despicable president in the history of this country because no one has done more to damage this country and hurt American citizens.
I would agree with you on that.
That is Laura Ingraham and on her show on Fox News. And listen, he's absolutely right. He is absolutely right. And so when, you have people that are out there, I love this. I lost my ever-loving mind the first time that I heard this, where somebody said, and this was a couple weeks ago, when they said, oh, well, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they're meeting and it's going to be a smooth transfer of power. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, really? Because you know that every turn they're talking about blocking or Trump-proofing what the president was elected to do. And by the way, they did this in the first term, too, with Russian collusion. What did the Democrats do in the first term, in Donald Trump's first term? They made up all of the Russian collusion BS. They dragged him through and dragged the American people through the Mueller investigation. They tried to impeach Donald Trump twice. And now Donald Trump, the American people, told Joe Biden to go stick it, go take a hike. You've destroyed America enough. And now you've got Joe Biden, doing this. I mean, petulant is the only word that comes to mind. Absolutely petulant. When it comes to Donald Trump's first term, and then I'm going to move on. But when it comes to Donald Trump's first term in office, I will forever look at that as one of the biggest political wasted opportunities in history. Because he had the first 2 years, he's dealing with all of the insanity of the Mueller investigation and all of the accusations that were thrown at him, the nastiness of the media, not one, but, two. Eventually, he had two attempts at impeachment, and the Senate saved him. And so he was always dealing and trying to lead the country with one hand tied behind his back, and then COVID happened. And so then everything was about COVID. And so Donald Trump, in my opinion, he never got to be the leader that he really, truly could have been. Some of that was because of the Democrats. Some of that was because of COVID and the insanity that surrounded COVID. And I could do an hour-long monologue on that, but I'm not going to. But bottom line is, now they're trying to do that same thing that they did in the first term a second time by putting up roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And I'm telling you, it is so incredibly frustrating. And I think that's why, if the Democrats, if they don't play their cards right, and if they continue down this road of just, anti-Trump, and we've got to do everything we can to stop him, and we've got to save all of these murderous, raping, illegal aliens, we've got to keep him in this country, then I'm sitting here thinking, all right, Trump's got another 4 more years, then we got 8 more years of J.D. Vance, and then, whoever's going to be next. Because the American people have been red-pilled. And if you don't know what that means, basically, the American people have woken up. And not in the woke lefty kind of way. No, they've woken up because they've seen what the Democrats are, what they're capable of and what they have done. And instead of being ashamed of themselves, instead of looking in the mirror and saying, look what we did, we destroyed America and we destroyed our party, they're doubling down. And so the big question is going to be, what do they have in store for Donald Trump the second time around? 866-90-RED-EYE. 866-90-RED-EYE, 907-3339. Dan Mandis here. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is a phone number. You can follow me on the socials, Dan Mandis. I'm on Facebook and also X at Dan Mandis Show. You can also find me if you want to send me an email. You can, Dan at 997WTN.com. That is where I host a morning show here in Nashville, Tennessee. Guys sent me a note about these drones. Hey, Dan, military experts are saying the U.S. military does not even have drones of this large size and sophisticated design in their inventory. You could fathom one or two custom drones by nerds, but 50 plus? No, I really can't, actually. That's a really good point. I guess when it comes to these drones, we're not going to find out what these are or who's behind them until we do some real serious intel. One of the things that I said earlier was it astonishes me that we can slice and dice a terrorist from hundreds of miles away, but we can't seem to figure out these drones. I don't get it. Got a lot more straight ahead. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here indeed. Appreciate you listening. Gary and Eric return next Sunday night, Monday morning. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm warning you, I'm a little under the weather. This is my first show back after a couple of days out from being sick, so I was gone from my morning show as well. So it's so far the voice is holding out. It's been a rough and a brutal couple of days, but it's always an honor to host Red Eye Radio. And you can follow me on X if you would. I'd appreciate it, at Dan Mandis Show. You can also follow me on Facebook, and again, it's the same, at Dan Mandis Show. So there's a lot going on. I'm just going to keep letting you know at the beginning of every hour, the whole situation with the drones still going on. Just last night in New Jersey, there were more of these drones that were spotted in the skies above New Jersey. There's some incredible footage. If you want to find it, I went ahead and tweeted it out on my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. And it really is amazing. And it's also amazing that our government has absolutely no idea what these drones are. We'll get into that as the evening continues to unfold. I do want to get into this story, though. The Inspector General report dropped yesterday, Thursday, on the FBI's involvement regarding January 6th. Now, one of the things that Donald Trump has said, this was big news today, is that he is going to possibly, sounds like he's made up his mind, he's going to pardon most, if not all, of the January 6ers. Most, if not all. We'll have to see what happens. But remember, we've all thought all along that maybe, just maybe, the FBI had some informants or some people in the crowd that inspired or encouraged the violence on that day. Well, it turns out, according to the Inspector General report, the FBI did have some people in the crowd that day, a total of 26. 3 of those were authorized to be in the crowd by the FBI. So the FBI has never said, pleading the fifth, or they won't really tell you what happened on January 6th or who was in the crowd. The FBI has never given so much as an indication as to how many people were in the crowd that were affiliated with the FBI. Well, this was the news alert from Fox News.
3 of those were authorized and tasked by the FBI to be there on January 6, 2021. We're coming up on 4 years since that day of the Capitol riot. This IG report specifically focuses on the FBI's handling of confidential human sources, or as we know them, FBI informants. For years, the outgoing FBI director, Chris Wray, has been pressed on reports of undercover agents. According to this new report, there were no undercover FBI agents. However, there were 3 confidential human sources tasked by the Bureau to be in the crowd on January 6th to specifically watch what the report states is concerns over domestic terrorism.
So they don't have any actual, undercover agents per se, but they have confidential human sources. And so you're talking about guys who maybe they're part of, one of these organizations, Proud Boys or whatever, and they're in the Proud Boys. And let's say they get busted for something. And so they are taken down to the police station. The FBI comes in, and the FBI will say, hey, you can either spend, whole bunch of time in jail, or you can become a confidential human source for the FBI. And so they go back into the Proud Boys, and the rest of the Proud Boys, and I'm just using the Proud Boys as an example, but Proud Boys, by and large, they don't know that this guy is a confidential human source for the FBI, and he remains a member of the Proud Boys, and so he's a turncoat to the Proud Boys, if you will. And so the FBI had all these informants in the crowd, and if I'm understanding this whole thing correctly, the FBI actually assigned 3. The other 23 were not assigned. They were not on their own. They were just there, observing, I guess, and checking things out.
Out of those 3, 1 entered the Capitol, 2 others entered a restricted area. The report says the FBI did not encourage or authorize any sources to go into the building or a restricted area. In addition to the 3 confidential human sources, the FBI told there were 23 that were there on their own. Now, they had worked with the FBI in the past on other cases, but not specifically on the January 6th rally. Some of them entered a restricted area as well. And what stands out in this report, none of the confidential human sources that entered the U.S. Capitol or a restricted area were prosecuted by the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Remember, this is an office that is still arresting nearly 4 years later and prosecuting people with this case.
So no actual undercover agents were there, but informants, some of whom went into restricted areas, and they were never charged. So why is it you have all of these other people, 1,500 people, civilians, who went to the Capitol that day, and they did go into restricted areas, and they were never charged? I mean, they were charged, but these were not charged. So what's the difference? What's the difference between the 1,500 that were charged and these confidential human sources who were not charged? Well, obviously, these confidential human sources, resources, they were from, they had their relationship with the FBI. Now, all across the media today, the headlines were that the conspiracy theorists were wrong and that there were no undercover agents, which is a fraction of the story. The FBI actually had undercover human sources. Not undercover agents, but undercover human sources. Now, they're different. I just told you the difference. An undercover agent is somebody who kind of works for the FBI and they have their own skill set. But these undercover human sources, those are, again, people that are part of these various groups like the Proud Boys, and they're basically, spies for the FBI. Agents are employed by the FBI, but these informants are basically people who, again, infiltrate various groups and snitch. They're spies. Now, the U.S. District Attorney there in D.C., they say that generally speaking, they didn't charge anyone for simply going into restricted areas. They had to have committed other crimes to be charged. But they do point out in the story that these confidential human sources, they're basically spies who are part of these various groups, like the Proud Boys and so forth, and they're recruited by the FBI to become informants. But if you had 23 there that were not authorized to be there, and they did go into these restricted areas, they weren't charged. And I'm going to assume it's because of this relationship, perhaps, with the FBI. But here's my question, and some great analysis from Fox News. My question would be this. If they were there, but they were not authorized to be there, and these FBI spies went into those restricted areas, why were they not charged? Remember what I said a minute ago. Generally speaking, January 6ers were not charged if that was their only crime. Their only offense was going into restricted areas. They say, generally speaking, if that's the only bad thing they did, they were not charged. Carrie Urban is a legal analyst from Fox News, and she raises a really good point on this.
But if you remember, anyone who even raised the possibility that there were paid FBI spies part of what happened, who were part of what happened on January 6th, they were deemed crazy, conspiracy theorists, and the like. Now, look, confidential human sources are a law enforcement tool that are used in all kinds of situations, and we know that some of these people were apparently part of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. But again, why so many? What were they doing? What were the conversations they were having? And if they were, in fact, according to the IG and the FBI, not authorized to be there, then why weren't they prosecuted like everybody else who were prosecuted for similar issues?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I would say that number one is because the FBI did have that relationship. And number two, that if they were prosecuted, then ultimately it might come out that they were spies for the FBI. And the FBI couldn't have that now, could they? And so these have been questions that everyone has had for years, though. So there may not have been undercover agents that were trying to create what happened, but on a more micro level, you've got some guys on the government payroll maybe encouraging this kind of behavior. None were charged, but at least to me, it does look suspicious.
The questions are, what were those confidential human sources who were, quote, not encouraged or directed to be there by the FBI? What were they saying to the other people in their groups? And the reason I keep raising that is because if, in fact, there were conversations occurring like, hey, let's go in there, let's do that, let's do this. Entrapment is a defense.
Yep.
If a government agent induces you to commit a crime, a defendant can raise that in the court of law and say, look, I was trapped into doing something. I was enticed into doing something by the government I otherwise wouldn't have done. Now, the government's response based on this report would probably be, well, they weren't authorized by the government to be there at the time. But then, of course, a question for a judge would be, well, could they have been perceived still as an agent of the government, given that they were, this confidential human source? What did the defendant know about them and their role at the time? I just think this report raises more questions, but certainly at a minimum, gives some credibility to people who have been saying this for so many years.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep asking the right questions, spies were there, most not authorized. Did they encourage the behavior of what we saw that day? Because let's be honest, part of what happens is that when things like this happen, then the left, as you know, very much politicized January 6th. They got Trump off of Parler. Actually, they got Trump off of Twitter. They got Parler off the internet. And they have been using it and politicizing January 6th for years. I mean, let's be honest. That was one of the only platforms that they had heading into the 2024 election. So they politicized it. They did everything they could to take advantage of it. They demonized and attacked Donald Trump supporters for years since this whole thing happened. So it was to the left's advantage to be able to politicize this. And so when it happened, and if it was encouraged by some of these spies that were in the Capitol, made their way into the Capitol, well, then a lot of these January 6ers, a lot of these J6ers, they have a defense that they were not offered because the FBI wasn't admitting that there were spies that were there that day. They were not on the payroll, so why were they not charged? Well, because they didn't want to admit that they were actually, and they didn't want it to come out that they were actually spies for the FBI. The feds could say, well, it's because they didn't do anything else wrong. They just went into the restricted areas. Well, Jonathan Turley is a big favorite of mine, of course, a George Washington University law professor, and he agrees that, yeah, there's a lot of questions that do need to be answered.
Well, in some ways, it raises more questions than answers. It does support Ray's testimony that there were no undercover agents in the crowd. I think that for others, there's going to be a lot of concern as to what these sources were doing there. Only 3 of them were told to be there. The question is really these other people. We've had cases in the past where the defense has argued that sources and agents have been extremely active in pushing people towards criminal conduct. We saw those allegations raised in the Michigan case involving the governor there. And I think that some defense attorneys may raise the question as why they weren't told, if they weren't told, about these confidential sources that might have been involved tangentially with their own cases. Because usually defense counsel says, we want to know what assets, what personnel the government had there. So there's going to be questions of that kind that arise. The treatment of these sources are also going to be a subject of continued debate. This is the department that had someone announce they were going to do a shock and awe. They were going to go after everyone they could to deter future misconduct.
Yeah, well, apparently that shock and awe did not include the spies that were on their payroll. So there is a lot of questions here. And one of the biggest things that I take away from all of this is that, as Carrie or Ban was talking about this, that Fox News legal analyst, is that if you were somebody who raised these kinds of questions, who was in the crowd, who was told to do what, who was encouraged to do what, were there people that made their way into the Capitol and did things that they typically wouldn't do because they were encouraged by some of these spies on the FBI payroll? And the FBI didn't admit to it, and that was a defense that they could have used, was entrapment. And so what Donald Trump says, and listen, I'm far from a legal expert, but when Donald Trump says, yeah, you know what, I may end up pardoning the J6ers 9 minutes into my second term, I think that this Inspector General report might give him that justification. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here, in for Gary and Eric. Larry is calling from Clarksville, Tennessee on Red Eye Radio. Larry, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Hey, Dan. Great show. Glad you're feeling better. We've missed you.
Thanks, man.
The FBI is absolutely lying about this. There was a 74-year-old woman from right here in Tennessee that was there on January 6th. She was actually let in by the Capitol Police along with hundreds of others that they let in, and all she did, Dan, was go in there to pray for our country. Well, 2.5 months ago, the FBI did a full-on raid on her house then and put her in prison.
The stories, Larry,
not had a trial.
and Larry, here's what I'll say, because you're right. The stories of what we hear from these folks that have been arrested for the January 6th, their stories are horrendous. And I've interviewed several of them. I know that others on WTN have as well, because a good number of those folks were from my state of Tennessee. And they're being treated absolutely horrifically. And so there's a lot of infuriating, frustrating, and horrifying individual stories that we could go into. But part of what happened on January 6th, not only is, of course, all those people going into the Capitol, and you're right about that, Larry, but part of the other conversation has to be about Nancy Pelosi and not taking Donald Trump's offer on the additional security, Homeland Security and the FBI and the Capitol Police, all of them ignoring the massive amount of intelligence before January 6th, where they completely ignored it. And I believe the reason why they ignored... Go ahead, Larry.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but you've even played the audio on 99.7 Nashville Morning News of, one of Pelosi's, cohorts or whatever, employees, while she was in her limo saying, "Oh, this is all on me."
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right. And here's the thing, and Larry, I appreciate the call. Here's the thing is that there are so many acts of I get so frustrated with this story because I know that innocent people have been jailed. And I think Larry's right about the lies. I think that the left and the media and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they politicized this. I've got a lot more on this straight ahead. It's Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. The J6ers in the news today, as Christopher Wray, by the way, of course, stepping down, as you no doubt know. Kash Patel is waiting in the wings, and this is going to be very interesting because Kash Patel, he's going to get in there, and he's really going to start digging around. Now, the J6ers, they're in the news today because Donald Trump came out today, and during the Time Magazine, the big interview that he gave Time Magazine, he says that within 9 minutes, he may have the J6ers pardoned. I'm going to play some audio from a few days ago. This is when he was on with Kirsten Welker on Meet the Press, and the question was about the J6ers.
Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
Well,
those people have suffered long and hard, and there may be some exceptions to it. I have to look. But, if somebody was radical, crazy, there might be some people from Antifa there. I don't know. These people have suffered. Their lives have been destroyed. And yet in Portland, where they burn down half the city, they burn it down all the time. It's like a, routine occurrence. They don't do anything.
See, and he's absolutely right. There's so many, and I'm sort of struggling with this topic a little bit tonight because I don't want the entire show to be about this, but there's so many different levels of conversation here. In the news today, the Inspector General report coming in and talking about how the FBI had some confidential human sources within the crowd there on January 6th, and they were not charged, even though some of them did end up going into the Capitol. You had all these other people that were charged for going into the Capitol. Now, the big question is, why weren't the FBI's confidential human sources, why were they not charged? Yet all these other people were. And so there's that aspect to the conversation. Donald Trump talking about with Kirsten Welker about how people my opinion, have been way overcharged as far as these J6ers go. They've been kept in horrific conditions. The trial process taking way too long. Some people, and Donald Trump talks about this with Kirsten Welker because, she's baffled at why Donald Trump would pardon, and I'm going to air quote this, even those who have admitted to assaulting police officers.
Some of them, 169 of them, have pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers.
Because they had no choice.
900 pleaded guilty to other crimes. They're also going to be eligible for a pardon from you? But you're going to consider pardoning even those who pleaded guilty to crimes, including assaulting police officers.
You ever see, by the way, Kirsten Welker, when she gets all wrapped around the axle on something, her eyes get really wide and she's speaking in a really affected way. And Trump is like, calm down. Some of these, and he's absolutely right on this, some of these people had no choice but to admit to effectively a plea deal.
Sometimes they say, here's your choice.
You're not ruling it out.
Look, I know the system. The system's a very corrupt system.
Yep.
They say to a guy, you're going to go to jail for 2 years or for 30 years. And these guys are looking, their whole lives have been destroyed. For 2 years, they've been destroyed.
Yeah, so in other words, you're on the hook for supposedly going after a police officer. And by the way, there are people that did legit go after police officers. I'm not realize there's varying degrees of people that are being held, various degrees of violence there on January 6th. Some people went into the Capitol and they got carried away. There was some vandalism. Other people actually did go after and attack police officers. There's varying degrees. There's people that have been accused of attacking police officers, but the reality is they didn't. But if they're facing 30 years in prison, you are way outgunned as far as attorneys go, and they come to you and they say, listen, we have unlimited resources and we could put you away literally for life. So you can either admit that you attacked a police officer and we'll give you, you'll get 2 years. And so you admit to it, even if you believe and even if you know in your heart that you did not attack a police officer, you're going to admit to it because you know that you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of being able to defeat all of the DOJ's attorneys. And that's what Donald Trump is saying. And so when the president-elect, when he starts talking about how, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to pardon all these folks on day one within 9 minutes. People want to know what exactly it is that he means by that. But I think he has said in the past he'll look at the cases individually. An entire blanket pardon of all of those people, I think, is going to be a lot more controversial. But here's the deal. As that Inspector General report comes out, where it turns out, and Christopher Wray has never wanted to admit any of this, but then it finally comes out in the Inspector General report today that the FBI had some people in the crowd that day, a total of 26, 3 that were authorized to be in the crowd by the FBI, 23 that were not authorized to be in the crowd. However, they were these confidential human sources. They did have a relationship with the FBI. And so the question is, number one, some of those folks did go into the Capitol. Why were those confidential human sources from the FBI, why were they not charged? That's number one. Number two, the confidential human sources, these people that, are part of these, various groups like the Proud Boys and whatever, and they were also working as spies for the FBI while involved in the in the Proud Boys and some of these other folks. Well, then the question is, what did they do? Did they encourage people to go into the Capitol? Could it be considered entrapment? And why weren't the attorneys for the J6ers told about these 26 people? Because, the audio that I played earlier, you have the various news analysts and legal analysts out there that are saying that entrapment is a defense. And so if we had known about these 26 confidential human sources, well, then that would have been an opportunity for defense for some of the J6ers. I love what Representative Clay Higgins had to say on Twitter. Mr. Christopher Wray, remain close to D.C. Your presence will be commanded repeatedly. In this holiest of seasons, as you box up your mementos of oppression, may visions of the thousands of American J6 families you've destroyed dance through your head. Merry Christmas, Higgins out. I love that. Because you have people, these J6ers, you have people that were never violent before, and they're clearly, in my opinion, not a danger to society. But you see, the Democrats, and oftentimes, you know, politicians generally speaking, but especially on the left, they don't care about your house. They don't care about your city. They don't care about what happens to you or your family. What they care about is what happened to their shrine at the Capitol building. They don't care about Portland or New York or Chicago or any of these other cities that are being destroyed by illegal aliens, or what happened during the George Floyd riot. They don't care about any of that. But how dare you walk into the Capitol? How dare you break something? How dare you put your feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk? And I think part of this is all about the politicization of January 6th. Because that is the epitome of the Get Trump movement. You had the J6 congressional investigation. They impeached him. They threw him off Twitter. They threw Parler off of the web. And it gave the left the talking points for the next, 4 years. And finally, the American people got so sick and tired of hearing about it, they voted for Donald Trump because they slowly but surely began to realize that J6 wasn't really a thing. And please understand, I'm not diminishing what happened on January 6th. But the politicization of January 6th, the overcharging of some of the J6ers that they've had to endure, the horrible conditions that they've had to endure, all of this absolutely needs to be investigated. 866-90-RED-EYE is a phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. Let's see here. Robert is in Athens, Alabama on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Robert, thanks for calling in.
How you doing tonight?
I'm all right, man. Go ahead.
I've seen some of the footage of that day, and I do believe some of the people that were destroying the property, beating windows out, doing untoward things,
Right.
I believe, they need to get something out of it. But I was wondering, where do you buy tickets to go into the building?
To go into the Capitol? Yeah. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I've been to the Capitol as a guest, but I think one of the ways that you can get in is by checking in with your congressman. They'll give you a tour. They have tours there at the Capitol. But obviously this is, and that's one of the other things that the Democrats did, by the way. Remember this, when they went on a witch hunt going after congressmen who had been giving some of the people involved in January 6th tours before that happened. And they're going after the congressman saying, well, you let these people into the building. And the Congress people, the Republicans, are like, well, wait a minute. We didn't know what was going to happen. And so this whole thing, it just seems like, at least for me, the FBI, the DOJ, they way overplayed their hand. And I appreciate the call. Boomer is also calling from Alabama on Red Eye Radio. Boomer, go ahead.
Hey, giddy up. I just wanted to say, first of all, you're doing a great show, bro. Hang in there.
Thank you.
But no, man, transparency. That's what I think That's what I love about Trump is he's transparent. No matter what, he's transparent. He throws that mirror up and he lets all those idiots up there in D.C. look at themselves. And, I mean, it's like the head of the DOJ jumping ship. And then the next day, here we go. We've got that big old drop on the big old press drop on him. But, hey, it is what it is. At least he's transparent. And that's what I love about him. And hopefully,
and what's interesting, let me say this, Boomer, if I could. Part of what I love about what you're saying about transparency is that what Trump is going to do when he gets in there, the left they've been freaking out, right? Oh, he's going to go after his political enemies. He's going to go after his political enemies. He's got a hit list. And my thing is, if these are people that did the American people wrong, then they're the enemies of the American people, not just of Donald Trump.
Absolutely. I mean, we pay their salaries. Don't get me wrong. They're getting some off the side from all their supporters and all that other. But I really just don't understand why we have allowed not just me and you, but our parents and our grandparents since the 1960s, through Kennedy, through Nixon, through Carter, even. I mean, and then you get up into 9/11. You get all these different. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist kind of guy. You need an aluminum foil hat. Blah blah blah. This that.
Oh, let me tell you something. I got Boomer. I got to run, unfortunately. But you talk about tinfoil hats. How many times? And I could do an entire hour on this. But how many times have the tinfoil hatters actually proven to be right? It happens time and time again. 866-90 Red Eye will return next.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis, in for Gary and Eric. They should be back on Monday. Looking forward to their return. As always, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is on from 6 to 10 Eastern Time, and you can find all the links to hear that, if you would like, at 997WTN.com. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook as well. We video live stream the show as well. So if you've ever wanted to see what a radio show looks like as it's in progress, well, you'll see it there. I've never understood why people watch that, but they do. 866-90 Red Eye. Got a lot more straight ahead. This is Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here, indeed, in for Gary and Eric. Always appreciate the opportunity to host on Red Eye Radio. And if you want to follow me on X or Facebook at Dan Mandis Show, earlier in the broadcast, I posted to my X feed some amazing video of some drones that were flying over New Jersey last night, earlier tonight, whatever you want to say, Thursday evening. And this is incredible footage. And now I see that some drones have now been spotted over Connecticut. Yeah, from Fox News. The Pentagon has not disclosed the possible origin of multiple drones spotted over New Jersey in recent weeks, but now they've also been spotted in Connecticut. I just saw this. It just came down. Several drones were reportedly spotted in the skies above a Connecticut suburb Thursday night, adding to recent sightings that have perplexed residents and raised questions about possible national security and public safety concerns. A social media user on X posted videos of possible drones in Fairfield, 55 miles northeast of New York City. Drones hovering over New Jersey and near Staten Island, New York in recent weeks have raised concerns due to a lack of clarity over their origin. But our government says, don't worry about it. Everything's okay. Sure. One ex-user filmed what she said were at least 5 drones in the sky over the Fairfield, Connecticut train station. They all went by each other very quickly. She is heard saying off camera. They're at different levels. My husband has a drone. They don't fly this far and this quiet. At one point, she said the aircraft could be a hobbyist drone, but then another social media user said that she noticed the drones between 5:30 and 6 o'clock and saying it was a crazy sight to see and definitely not planes. And that's part of what's interesting here, is that people, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm not a drone person. But part of what I find interesting here is that there are people that are really good at drones and experts in drones, and they'll say that what these videos show from the skies of New Jersey, they're unlike any drone they've ever seen before. And so when, America is asking questions, and these are valid questions that Americans are asking, and we want to know from our government, please tell us where these drones are coming from. And our government has the audacity to snicker and to roll its eyes and to say, wow, we don't know what these drones are, but we can tell you that they're no threat to America.
Well, number one, I'm going to call it total bullshit that no one knows what these are. And I think it's a slap in the face to the American people to say they don't know what this is.
Yeah, that is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if you think about the technology that we have as a nation, and I keep going back to this example, where we can slice and dice a terrorist on a rooftop from hundreds of miles away, but we can't figure out these drones. We have no idea if they're from Iran or Schenectady. Nobody seems to know. Now, to Marjorie Taylor Greene's point, and it's a great point, is, okay, so if you don't know truly where these drones are, these drones, some of these drones are the size of a bus. And we don't know? So what is worse? The fact that we don't know, or that quite possibly our government does know, and they're lying to us?
If they're telling the truth, then this country is in horrible shape. We're all in danger. I mean, seriously, if our great government can't identify what these drones are, they're flying every single night, that people are sitting out there videoing with their cell phones, then no American is safe. I have no respect if our government cannot say what these are.
Yeah, and realize just in New Jersey, you have these drones flying over its largest aquifer west of New York City, near military research facilities, and over Donald Trump's golf course in Bedminster. And so this is an issue. And one of the things that I really don't like is how our government, federal and at the local level, like, for example, in New Jersey, you've got the governor for the state of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, and he was interviewed, and he is just sort of rolling his eyes at Congressman Jeff Van Drew, who appeared on Fox News on Wednesday with this rather alarming allegation.
From very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the deal. Iran does have motherships. Now, I don't know if this is a mothership off the coast of New Jersey, but they do have motherships with a lot of drones. You know, Iran is really good at drone warfare. They work with China, and China is also very good at drone warfare, and this is a thing. And I do believe that drone warfare, which is, by the way, clearly you know that drones are already being used in warfare. And the kind of things that drones could do to innocent civilians is horrifying. I mean, you militarize those drones, you weaponize those drones. And that's why, Jeff Van Drew, you can do many things with drones. You can weaponize them, but you can also clearly, obviously, use them for intel. You can also use it to create chaos in a nation, which is part of what's going on now. Is a lot of people are talking about these drones, and the government doesn't know what they are, or they claim that they don't know what they are. But this has been going on for quite some time. And drones, or UAPs, have been flying over our military and nuclear installations for quite some time now. Some sort of craft that our government either has no idea what it is or what they are, or they're, again, not telling us. But that's been going on for quite some time. In Oregon, a friend of mine named Grace sent me a story out of Oregon, where in Oregon, they're worried about, some UAPs out there. Unidentified aerial phenomena, I believe is what they call them. So they're not even saying those are drones. They could be drones, but nobody really seems to know. And so everywhere you look in the skies these days, it seems like people are seeing things that are rather alarming. And, of course, everybody does remember the Chinese balloon, the spy balloon that flew over America gathering data. We let that go on way too long, and so now here we are with nobody really knowing where these drones have come from. And so this Congressman, Jeff Van Drew, he says that we need to take action.
Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down.
So, Jeff Van Drew saying they need to be shot down. A lot of people say these drones need to be shot down. The problem is that's illegal, unless it's the federal government. If the federal government can shoot down these drones, which that is their purview, they're the ones that will shoot down these drones, but they won't do it. They won't do it. And my question would be this. Okay, so if they don't know what they are, and they don't know what they're capable of, then why exactly wouldn't they at least shoot one down? Just maybe to get some intel? And so that, of course, when Congressman Jeff Van Drew, he shows up on Fox News, and this was on Wednesday, and he says, that this is Iran and motherships off the shore of New Jersey. That sparks a massive war of words between people who believe that it is Iran or some other foreign entity. And nobody really seems to know. He says this is the Iranians. The governor of New Jersey, though, Phil Murphy, says, no, it's not.
The Department of Defense said there's zero evidence to that effect. FBI said zero evidence. I'm not sure what he's been watching lately, but he might want to watch the news. Israel has decapitated Iran, and we have through economic sanctions. I don't think they've got boats off the coast of Iran right now. So let's not fearmonger this. Let's try to honestly put our heads down with a sense of urgency, based it on facts, and try to figure this out together.
Iran actually has a lot of money. Iran is actually still funding terrorism because Joe Biden allowed Iran to sell its oil to China. Joe Biden did that. Joe Biden did that by ignoring the Trump sanctions. And that, of course, led to the funding of what happened to Israel through Hamas, because Iran funds Hamas and Hezbollah. And so for the governor of New Jersey to say, there's no way it's Iran. You don't know that, do you, governor of New Jersey? You don't. And, there's some people out there that are laughing at Congressman Van Drew for making the claims that he made. But I guess I would ask you the question. What is more laughable? Congressman Van Drew saying these drones are from an Iranian mothership, or the fact that our own military and our own government have no idea where these drones have come from, what exactly they are, or what their capabilities are. And so I love that the interviewer actually asked the governor of New Jersey, okay, so how can you say that there is no danger of these drones when you actually don't know anything about them?
When you say we don't see any evidence of a threat to public safety, what is that based on? Because if you can't say what this is and who it's coming from, how can you know?
I don't have a crisp answer for you on that one. That's the $64,000 question, but I'm relying overwhelmingly on the experts in the federal government.
Wow. I mentioned this earlier, and it certainly bears repeating that during this whole interview, the New Jersey governor actually said a number of different times that he was working with the feds, and even named Alejandro Mayorkas as being on the job, and Mayorkas is watching these things closely. And I keep thinking, really? The same guy that said the border is secure for years when it wasn't? The same guy that said that the Border Patrol whipped those Haitian migrants when they never did? He is the one that's watching these drones? Got it. That makes me feel so much safer. Murphy also says the feds could shoot down the drones if they wanted to. This is, again, that is their legal purview. But the Pentagon is saying, no, these drones are not from Iran. John Kirby came out on Thursday and said no. And you know what the great thing is? People like John Kirby, it's like you can hear the eye roll. You know what I mean? In the way that they're speaking to the media and the American people, you can hear the eye roll in his voice when he says, no, there is no mothership off the eastern seaboard.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus. We have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
So that is John Kirby, and he says, again, no evidence of foreign involvement with these drones, no evidence that these were actually illegal or operating in restricted airspace. And by and large, he says they're all manned aircraft. It's all perfectly legal, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But again, just a reminder that John Kirby is also the same guy that said that the border was closed. This is also the same guy that covered up for Joe Biden's clear lack of mental acuity and has been defending the horrific Afghanistan withdrawal, among many other things. And so I love that Jackie Heinrich from Fox News actually confronted him on his, what I would say is a lack of transparency.
On the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing? Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far in an investigation that is ongoing has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity.
So you can tell that Kirby just, he is trying to, in my opinion, put one over on the American people. They're not, my opinion is, I don't believe that they're leveling with the American people. Now, I'm just here to tell you, I don't know what these drones are. Nobody really does, or if the government does know, they're not telling us. But it's not like the government has always been transparent about things like this. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here on Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here. You're kind of playing the audio of what's happened the last couple of days with all of these drones. Coming up after the next break here at the bottom of the hour, I'll take a lot of your calls on this because this is something that people are fascinated with. And a lot of people, even if you have drones, you don't have drones the size of buses. You don't have drones the size of an SUV, for example. I mean, this is really an interesting story. And I think part of what people are really worried about is the fact that, once again, we're not getting a lot of transparency from the federal government. And that's clearly an issue. And I think that's why when you hear, of all people, when the New Jersey governor is talking about how he's been working with Alejandro Mayorkas to make sure that everything is on the up and up, and these drones are not from Iran and they're not from China. It's like, could you just not invoke the name of Alejandro Mayorkas? Doesn't exactly exude confidence.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here in for Gary and Eric indeed. Just a couple more sound bites very quickly from Congressman Jeff Van Drew out of New Jersey, as he's talking about his frustration that Governor Phil Murphy and others, including, and I played you the audio from others in the Biden administration, basically just blowing off the whole drone story. And Van Drew, part of his deal is that he is actually being mocked by many people in Washington, D.C. And here's the thing, and I've said this many times, and that is that people can be made fun of, people can be called tinfoil hatters, people can be called conspiracy theorists, but oftentimes those people end up being right in the end.
They've been incredibly stupid and incredibly weak with this. Here's the point. We know they're not backyard drones that some hobbyist is using because they're much more sophisticated than that. We know that they're not a commercial company within the United States because we don't even have this level of sophistication yet. We are a full decade behind where China is with drones. The government claims it's not them. They say it's not them. So who is it? Well, I had credible individuals who have high security ratings, and they came to me. And again, these are dependable, credible individuals that have security clearance that felt that they wanted to clear the air. They were in essence whistleblowers and said, look, they believe there's a real possibility it could be Iran, that there could be a ship out, not right on the coast of New Jersey, not right there, but these drones, as cited by the Coast Guard, are coming in and out of the ocean. We're not being told the truth. They are dealing with the American public like we're stupid.
And
no answers, no focus, no ideas. Of course people are concerned. So at the very least, what I've done is passed forward a very credible possibility that came from credible experts. These are real people that didn't want to reveal their names because they didn't want to lose their position, who have high security clearance. It's the real deal. I deal with these people. I'm on the aviation subcommittee. I'm the vice chairman of transportation. This is real. I'm not saying it's definite, but it's something that needs to be explored and treated with respect.
Yeah, listen, that's Jeff Van Drew. He is a congressman, and you just heard him talk about his credentials. He was on Fox News. They were also talking about how he's got some cred. And so the bottom line is, if our government doesn't know what these are, but they're just kind of eye-rolling and saying, well, they're nothing. I don't know if anybody's really believing that. To your call as we go. Steve is in Cleveland, Tennessee on Red Eye Radio. Steve, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. I love it when you're on takeover for Jerry and Eric.
Thanks.
When I first tuned on this morning, Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about the chaos that they're going to cause. That is falling to my belief, that is falling right into what the narrative wants. And I do believe these are government drones. Nobody can tell me any different. Because if they thought, if the government had one inkling that it was Iran, they would blow it out of the sky. They're not going to shoot down their own ships. I think they're using it to cause chaos. And everybody on the right is now talking about it's causing chaos. And I believe they're doing this to create false flag, to create some kind of civil unrest, so that they won't be able to swear President Trump in January 20th. What's your take on that?
I don't think so, Steve. I think if you're going down the martial law road, I don't see that happening. I don't. I think that they understand that even if something happened, I think that Donald Trump, it is clear the American people want Donald Trump. And I don't think that this drone controversy is enough is going to cause enough chaos to justify martial law. I just don't. But you could be onto one thing, and that is, and it's clear that the Biden administration, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it as difficult as possible for Donald Trump to do his job. I mean, earlier we were talking about how there's remnants of Donald Trump's wall that still could be used to continue building the wall. Unfortunately for America, Joe Biden has decided to, sell the materials pennies on the dollar. So what he's trying to do, what Joe Biden is trying to do, is make it harder for Donald Trump to continue building the wall. And so anybody, and I mentioned this earlier, anybody who says, oh, well, Joe Biden is cooperating with Donald Trump in a quote unquote peaceful transfer of power. Well, if what you mean by that is making it hard to do your job and the job that the American people voted you in to do, well, that is exactly what Joe Biden is doing. And it's complete and utter BS. And you see this time and time again. Joe Biden came to that agreement with all of those federal employees that they could continue to work from home, when the reality is that Trump and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and a lot of other people on the right are saying that these federal employees need to go back to work. They need to go back to those buildings. And what does Joe Biden do? That's right. What Joe Biden does is he says, no, all y'all can stay working from home. We're going to come up with this agreement right now. And so they're doing everything they can to hamstring Donald Trump. They're sending all of this government money to these various organizations, sort of stockpiling money, if you will, because they know that Donald Trump is not as friendly, clearly, to all of these, Green New Deal environmental kind of organizations that the Biden administration is shuffling all this money to in his final weeks. They're sending all of this money to Ukraine, knowing full well, and weaponry to Ukraine, knowing full well that Donald Trump wants to de-escalate the situation and not escalate the situation, which is exactly what Joe Biden is doing. So this whole BS about a peaceful transfer of power, well, no, there's not a mob storming the Capitol. That I understand. This is much more sinister. This is Joe Biden putting policies in place that clearly the American people voted against to make this as difficult of a transition as possible for Donald Trump. John is in Georgia on Red Eye Radio. John, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, touching on what you're talking about. Yeah, the Democrats are slapping the American people in the face. They're not helping the people out. Still dealing with the hurricane in western North Carolina. They're living in tents and it's cold. So where's the help for the American people there? Another slap in the face.
Well,
But
John,
touching on the
John,
drones,
if I may interject, that money is in Angola. That $1 billion is in Angola. That's what Joe Biden decided to do. Go ahead.
But anyways, getting back on the drones, I do feel it could be a DOD contractor testing out the new technology, and if they should be registered with the FAA, as big as they are, and have numbers on them, for one thing. And I think they are mapping. The drones are mapping the lay of the land and recording that information, and then trying to sell it back to the government. And you're right. I think they do have a high security clearance, and it's very tight-lipped right now with everybody. But
can I ask a dumb question though? Like, why would that be secret? Like, why would that be secret? I mean, the government does mapping, so why would the government try to hide that? I mean, Google does the same thing.
I don't know. Why didn't they tell us about the balloons that were flying over? It was no big deal. They was getting the mapping on, over all of our Defense Department's property, and that, it finally came out. So it goes without saying, you can't trust the government no further than you told.
No, you can't, and I appreciate the call. I got a lot of calls to get to, but great points. Tom is in Virginia on Red Eye Radio. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Dan, for being there. So our government has satellites in outer space. They can look down with visual stuff, so they can see the drones, and the drones are at night, so you can trace where they come from and where they go to. Then they have radar, and you can track them that way from outer space, and you have infrared from outer space. So they're being tracked. They know where they come from, and they know where they go to. Now, as far as how did they get here, if they're a nefarious government, back when we had the COVID stuff and the shipyards were all messed up and they had all the ships out at sea and all the container ships and stuff like that, who knows? They could have just flipped a bunch of these containers on the trucks, distributed them across the United States, and at the appropriate time, they just opened them up, and here's all these drones. And they're operated from outer space by the bad guys, whoever you name your local bad guy. So all these things are possible. And as far as the ship at sea, we would know there's a ship at sea. We would be able to track the ship and drones coming on and off of it. And then maybe it's a submarine. It pops up at night. lets out the drones and sinks during the day or whatever. So our government knows that's got to be the top. We got to believe that. The other thing is, remember when we were in COVID, all our governments said, "Oh, we're going to buy drones so we can find the people and do this, figure out where they're going and who they are and all that other stuff." And then the federal government, the Pentagon, came out and said, "Hey, don't buy drones from China because they could be tracked, they could be this, they could be that, they could be manipulated, flown from a Chinese national and wherever China." And to all these possibilities. But go back to, why would bad guys fly a drone in the United States with its lights on, flashing lights too?
Well,
like, I'm here.
But part of what you're right, Tom, but one of the things I would say is, why would our government allow a Chinese spy balloon to fly all across our country? I mean, you bring up a good point, but then that is refutable by saying, Joe Biden allowed the Chinese to fly that thing all the way across our country, gathering information. So, and here's the deal, friends, and I'm going to say this 1,000 more times before the night is over. I don't know what this is. Each and every one of you have what I would say is a plausible explanation for these drones. Here's one of the other things. As listen to the Alejandro Mayorkases and the John Kirbys of the Biden administration. Can I just ask this question? Has the government in the past, let's just go with recent times, let's just start with the Biden administration, has the government done anything to show the American people that they can be trusted? No, they haven't. They've lied to us time and time again. Thomas is in Virginia. Thomas, you've been waiting a while. Thank you very much for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was just going to say that I'm a truck driver, and I was coming up 66 east toward D.C., about 40 miles from D.C. at about 6:35 yesterday morning, and I saw two bright lights in the sky, and I kind of blew it off as I go, wait a minute, that's not stars, they're too bright. So I looked up, I didn't see it anymore, I didn't pay attention to it. About a mile or so farther, I look, and now these two lights are to my right. I was at the edge of the mountains, coming out of the mountains over near Warrenton, Virginia. Anyway, they were following each other, and then the back when the lights went out, and then the front one did, and I was going man, that's not a Cessna plane enough because the lights are wrong. And there's no blinking light on it, right? So kind of watching up in the sky, hoping I'm driving track trails, trying to keep it running off the road. And I get up near my exit. When I took the exit ramp, I see there's some tree lines there, and I see this bright light kind of through the trees. And I go, I wonder if that's it again. So I get off the ramp, and the skyline opens up, and there's a big bright light to the right. I go, wow, that. I was like, oh my God, that looks like the stuff I've seen on the news about the lady with the New Jersey taking a picture with a camera, right?
Yep, and unfortunately, great story. Unfortunately, I'm up against the clock. I very much appreciate her because the technology is improving by the day. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric. They do return on Sunday night. Monday morning, you can find out more about me. Follow me on X if you would. Also Facebook, both at Dan Mandis Show. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find out more about that at 997WTN.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.